Did you know that there's a difference between a weatherman and a meteorologist? Weatherman's got no degree. That's right, no papers. Station calls him a meteorologist, and they'd be lying. A weatherman, why, that's just a stand-up comic who knows how to tell the temperature. Don't believe me? Think of the funniest guy you ever saw deliver the weather. That was 100% a weatherman. If he's joking about Cynthia's dress and what he had for dinner last night, and instead of asking, is it going to rain, that's a weatherman. Still not convinced? David Letterman was a weatherman at one point. Not exactly the toughest gig to land in 1973's Indiana, I'll bet. And believe me, I'll bet there will be a hot time in the old house tonight if you even entertain the idea of calling a meteorologist a weatherman. That meteorologist will slap your face so hard you'll think a Cat 4 hit your uneducated ass. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, his American accent is almost as good as Michael Caine's. Sweet John Kovacs from the internet.
People don't throw things at me anymore, maybe because I carry a bow around.
And his favorite Bob Seger song is Against the Wind, only because it's good. Bruce Leslie.
I'm always against the wind with my dietary habits.
Let me tell you something, though. Here's a low key secret for listen. Sean may have to plug his ears on this one.
I'm already rolling my eyes. Please continue.
Bob Seger got some good songs, son.
No, he does.
Bob Seger's got some really good songs.
Were you expecting him to comment on the breaking wind part of the joke?
No.
Oh, that was a joke.
You'll learn one of these days. Stick with it, Sean.
Bob Seger's 1994 greatest hits album here and everything, banger after banger after banger. Bob Seger's got, especially when once you're getting older, as you age, Bob Seger's songs start to hit even more hard on you and stuff. You're just like, oh my God, Jesus, Bob Seger, why are you doing this to me? But you can't, if it gets on the radio, if it's on the XM or something like that, I ain't changing the channel. I'm going through that heartbreak, damn it.
I know that classic rock, I know that people love classic rock for a reason, right? My problem with classic rock is never the classic rock itself. It's that it's way overplayed. It's the same 50 songs. It's, hey, Led Zeppelin's Black Dog followed by Heart's Barracuda. That's literally, it must be 10:30 a.m. That's what I hate about classic rock. If you're showing me some offcuts on Bob Seger, I'm all about it.
Hey, I might turn the page, but I'm not going to turn the dial, right?
I was like somebody, I could reference his name, but no one would know it because he's just open micer. But he did have a comment once about how, no matter where you are at about 3 o'clock in the morning, no matter what the radio station is, somebody's playing a jet airliner. If it's a Christian radio station, doesn't matter. Jet airliners being played. We got a little Steve Miller in there, whether you like it or not.
If anybody wants to hear us discuss Steve Miller, go back about 7 months. We had a whole episode where, for some reason, that's all we talked about.
And listen, sometimes you give the people what they want, as far as I'm concerned. Well, we are in the month of December here, everybody, and that is our St. Nicholas Cage, the Christmas movies of Nick Cage. It rages on here and everything. This one, maybe it's in wintertime. I mean, I guess, sure enough, right?
Christmas must occur, but it makes no surprise to me that this guy's totally unaware of when it happens.
Well, that's true. That's what we could say, right? Is that he's so consumed with himself that even Christmas goes by and we rarely even notice that it's past.
Leave it up to my dad to go and get lymphoma during Christmas.
What a bummer that guy is.
So I have 2 notes on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my notes is, this is probably the last Nicolas Cage movie where he can dye his hair and get away with it. Because his hair looks great in this movie. And it's totally a dye job, but it looks good. Anything after this movie, it looks like there's carpeting on his head.
Yeah,
I think he looked good overall here, which is something I can't always say after this. But I think he looked like a weatherman on his way up. You know what I mean?
He totally did.
I mean, he's playing it more like an anchor, like a Matt Lauer type, but still, the weatherman fits the theme of the movie.
Yeah. Yes. And he can do a variety of things, Nicolas Cage, right? Like he can play bonkers. He can be your action. Well, 20 years ago, he could be your action star.
Yeah.
But like nothing works better than put upon Nicolas Cage. Like Nicolas Cage going through a rough patch. He's just terrific at that.
I mean, look at the lineup of film.
That's the magic in Leaving Las Vegas. I think that's his best, most applauded performance in that put upon Nicolas Cage role. But something I like about Leaving Las Vegas is he's put upon to a point that I don't think I'll ever be.
Right.
But man, this one's pretty close to home. Like this one borderlines being too good because it's like, well, crap, I might as well went to work if I want to watch this for 2 hours.
What are you talking about? You're way more present with your family than this guy. Like way more.
Boy, it's a near miss. I'll just put it that way. It's only one bad. Like the Joker said, I was only one bad day away from being this guy.
I say that about every time I see some like homeless guy. I'm like, man, a couple of different choices, and there I am.
Well, we hope you all make the good choice to stick around here because we got a good one here for you. Before we get into all of it, we do say thank you to the people who support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, a whole bunch of stuff. This week on our Dinger Zone episode, we're talking about our top 5. What do we call them again? Off the radar.
Under the
radar. I had to scroll all the way to the bottom, and I couldn't get there before I remembered exactly what the title
And I'll
was.
tell you, if you're worried that all we're going to do is mention 15 Hallmark Christmas movies,
well, that's
don't
just
be worried.
Bruce. That's just Bruce that does all those. He likes
we only
those.
picked 13.
And I have a list of 4 under the radar movies in one of the most famous movies of all time. I'm sorry about that,
Go
everyone.
check it out, everybody.
The best part is that like
it's not like you came up with the idea, so I'll cut you some slack. On this one.
Yeah, that's true. He gave us a topic this week, so we have to we'll let him get away with murder at least once. So,
I think you give us the topic most. I don't know. You two, I never give us the topic. How does that sound?
Listen, we've seen what happens when we give you the topic, and God bless you, Bruce. We love you to death, but the topics sometimes, well, you never know. But
top 5 movies with black people in them.
I was like, what is that? What does it even mean?
I wanted to do top 5 sequels without Russell Crowe the week I was out.
Without Russell, but he appears in so many, though. That's the toughest part of all of it, really. So patreon.com/HMP. And if you're new to this show, thanks for joining, because chances are you might have come over from our YouTube channel because we've gotten a good many more subscribers over there. My popcorn video has done some pretty decent numbers and stuff like that. So I've been very pleased with that. And all the other kind of stuff I've been doing. I got my Christmas movie tier list out. I have a review of Jack Black's Dear Santa that is out on Paramount Plus. And I also did just quickly talked about Seven is coming out on IMAX in January, and I'm
wow, really?
Yeah. Should you see that in IMAX? Should you not? Check out my video over there on our YouTube channel. And I got some good stuff, because let me tell you, this next week, Tuesday, this coming Tuesday and stuff for physical media, unreal. December is unloading just a crap load of movies on us, and I'm gonna put a video out on the YouTube that shows you at least 3. I would be 4, but one of them's being delayed a couple of days, so it'll probably be a separate thing altogether. But 3 movies that couldn't be any more different than each other. So check that out. Links are in the show notes and everything. Let's get into it, gentlemen. Here's the IMDb plotline for The Weatherman. As we know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A Chicago weatherman separated from his wife and children debates whether professional and personal success are mutually exclusive. No, thank you. Here's one from Mystic 80. Mystic 80 writes it way better. Dave Spritz is a local weatherman in his hometown of Chicago, where his career is going well. While his personal life, his relationship with his perfectionist writer father, his neurotic ex-wife, and his now separated children is spiraling downward. Despite being loathed and loved by local masses, Dave is a guy who doesn't seem to have it all together, and he begins to feel it. An attractive job offer presents Dave with a major question: to pursue his career in New York City or remain at home with his family. Mystic 80 did a way better job than you, IMDb.
That's pretty great.
This is written by Steve Conrad. He would go on to write The Pursuit of Happiness, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Unfinished Business with Vince Vaughn, Wonder, that movie with the kid with the messed up face. And he's written a lot of TV and stuff as well. This movie is directed by Gore Verbinski. That's right.
Wow.
Gore Verbinski. You know him from The Ring, Rango, Mouse Hunt, The Mexican, The Lone Ranger, The Cure for Wellness, and of course all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. But guess what, boys? This blew my mind today as I looked up Gore Verbinski's filmography here, and to my utter shock, Gore Verbinski directed many a punk rock music video.
Wow.
He also, The Great Mouse Hunt.
Yeah, he mentioned
Yeah,
it.
I mentioned that.
Oh, I missed that one, but boy, that's a winner.
Gore Verbinski's first directing credit was for NoFX's S&M Airlines in 1989.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
And it wouldn't stop there. He directed Bad Religion music videos for Atomic Garden, American Jesus, 21st Century Boy, and Stranger Than Fiction, 3 of their biggest songs.
Wow.
That's nuts. But the internet didn't stop showing us magic today, boys. No sirree, Bob. Old Gore Verbinski also directed The Talking Budweiser Frogs.
Come on.
Budweiser, that was Gore. What a world
That's
we live
amazing.
in.
Amazing. I had no idea.
I was
believe
shocked.
Gore's one of those names. If you got it, you're bound for greatness.
My word, it was just, I was blown away. I was like, he did the Budweiser ads? Get out of here, dude. So cool. This movie, of course, is starring Nicolas Cage, Hope Davis, Michael Caine, Gil Bellows, Jimamine De La Pena, Michael Rispoli, and the one that blew my mind, a young Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, man.
When he came on screen at first, like for like a half a second, because you see his face for just a moment, and I'm just like, man, this kid looks like Nicholas Hoult, and I'm like, wait a minute, this math would probably add up, and I'm looking, I'm like, yeah, it 1000% was him. That was the coolest part of this entire movie, is just seeing where this young child actor would end up going in a couple of years.
Well,
He would be an X-Man.
Isn't he the boy in About a Boy with Hugh Grant? I think that's him.
It may be.
I think it is.
Been a minute since I've seen that one.
But it is fun seeing, because like I watched this with Lindsay, and we're going back and forth, like, because we didn't know when it was shot, so we're like, how old is this movie, right? Because one, Nicolas Cage looking youthful. I don't know how young he is in this movie, but he's looking pretty damn good, as opposed to Nicolas Cage, the latter Nicolas Cage, where you're like, dude, it's time to let go of that hair dye and maybe take the piece off.
I want to mention that real fast here, because this is, you mentioned something very important that like has become a bugaboo for me over the last couple of years and stuff in movies, and I've mentioned it fairly often, is bad hair dye, especially with men. His hair looks really, really good here, and there are times and stuff where you can't, but they cheap out on it or something. I don't know what they're doing, especially these days. You see, like, even DiCaprio and stuff, who's like, I wouldn't imagine is full gray or anything, but like, you dye his hair like a darker, brown or something for a role, and it's like, that doesn't look natural at all.
Right.
I don't understand why we're screwing it up these days.
And there's that scene where he's in his car and he pulls out his phone, and it's a flip phone. And that was one of the moments where you're like, oh, okay. So I know it's pre 2010, right?
Yeah, no iPhones in here, so you ain't,
Just thinking of where my life was when I watched it, I would guess 2004.
It's 2006, so you're dang
off.
close. No, but you're super close. And
can I tell you a fast story about, because
Please.
how I know the time here, because I was working at Best Buy at the time, and we had some like kind of, every now and then we would do some fun stuff, and we did like each other as employees and whatnot. So we would kind of, we went to the car bay there where you put all the stereos and stuff in, and we set up a little projector, and we played a couple of movies. I remember one of them was like the 40-year-old version. The other one was, I think we started with The Weatherman or something for some reason, and I think by the time that the boobs came out, they were just like, all right, listen, we gotta, all right, let's put in another film.
yeah.
That's just one of those times where I could definitely pinpoint the year and stuff just on account of like, oh yeah, I remember that.
So overall, because Bruce, you've never seen The Weatherman, right?
No, I've seen it.
Oh, you've seen it before.
Yeah.
So all three of us have seen this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What all did you remember from this movie?
I remembered snow, a bow and arrow, and that's it. And I thought I remembered more laughs.
I could that's two, and the third thing I had was that he was constantly getting shit thrown at him on the street.
Yeah, I forgot that part.
Those were the three that I remembered.
You know what I really think I remember is specifically the trailer. I think the trailer was very omnipresent, at least for me at the time. I remember seeing it a lot. I remember a lot of the quotes and stuff. And within this time and stuff, while watching it, one of the lines that was very prominent in the trailer was one of the final lines of the movie, like resolution lines of why people don't mess with me. I carry a bow. It's like that's a resolution line of the whole damn movie, and you're throwing it in the trailer. I'm like, oh, you know, if you don't know any better, whatever. But it's strange.
Ooh, that's a great point because now they do that with every movie where you see a trailer and you just see the whole movie. So I'm wondering if this is the beginning of that 2006.
It was certainly in play at that point. I will say that.
Yeah. I didn't remember much. And so I remember thinking, I think I even said it on the show last week, like, oh, this is a good movie. Like, it's not a great movie, but it's good. And after watching it last night, I can tell you, I hate this movie with a blinding passion.
Why? It's such a good time.
That's why.
This is one of those rare times where we really are lining up, Sean, because it seems like we're almost always at odds when we feel strongly about something. But I'm with you, and I was afraid to say it.
I hate it. I hate this movie. I hate everything about it. I hate that he can't, like, really, dude, you can't figure out why your family has problems with you. Like, you really don't know why that is. Like, the character is stupid. He's written poorly. And it kind of ruins the whole movie for me. I do love how Michael Caine is playing his dad, like, terrible American accent aside.
Woo!
What I do like about it is that he's playing it the way that most bad fathers are in real life, which is dealing with your father with quiet horror, which is what is happening here. And you see that portrayed very rarely in movies where, like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, it's going to be a whole thing that's going to take 3 days to, like, you know, like all of that stuff. And that's what's happening with Nicolas Cage. And he has that moment too in the car where he puts the thing that's supposed to be the NBC morning show, and he puts it on the seat so his dad can see it and be proud of him. And his dad doesn't even bother looking at the piece of paper. And it's all of that stuff about this movie is the only good part of this movie to me, which is that, you are literally showing what it is like to just want your dad's affection and acceptance, and you're not getting it.
How did you feel about Michael Caine's turn there towards the end, where he actually gives him advice that makes him happy?
I think that would never happen in real life, but it is a movie. So you have to do something.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, when we lay out who his character is and everything, and like we do it, the character tells us then, like, you know, what he's like what, by 21 or something, he'd got like the Pulitzer or something, or, you know, he got, like, this guy before he was, 40 years old was just absolutely destroying the world of, like, literature and everything and stuff. And this, your son looks up to you and just says, hey, I'd like to, live somewhere, within the shadow of my father and everything, but never really can quite live up to those expectations because those are, shoes that are damn near impossible to fill.
Right.
And you can't just, Sean, I think you and I see this movie through our own experiences, right?
Right.
Both with the father storyline and with the kid storyline. And you can't just decide in the middle of their life you're going to suddenly be a good father. You know what I mean? Right. That if you've lost 14 years, it takes 20 years to get them back.
Right. And it's far too late at that point too. Like
I will disagree in some principle. But yeah, you've got to wait till they're adults to reconcile is what I'm going to say.
Right. Right.
And you have to do everything right from that point forward and not ask them for anything in return.
Right.
But
and you have to be able to take it on the chin over and over and over again.
but
Like-
I do know far too many people. I think there was a point in time where I was programmed to feel like this, but if you're not loved, it's because you failed. So if you make more money, then they will love you more. I
Right.
struggled with that for a long time. So when I see him feeling that, I do find that to be a little bit I find it to be quite believable. The horrible dad that he is seems on track with some things I've experienced, talking about Nicolas Cage, not Michael Caine here. But just because I think something is well made doesn't mean that I think it's good.
Right.
It was very, very difficult to make this movie. A lot of effort went into it. It's also very difficult to lick the bottom of your foot, but I wouldn't go bragging that you could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, how do you pitch this movie? You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
who,
you pitch it as a dark comedy, right?
With Nicolas Cage attached.
With Nicolas Cage, and you got all these stars, and you do it as like a dark family comedy, basically. And because you have Nicolas Cage, there's your poster.
And I bet this is within 5 years of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they're probably pitching it as another something like that. You know, they're probably trying to do some art house comp to convince people it's going to be worth their money.
Yeah, and honestly, this is a time still when kind of Nick Cage is really kind of still killing it. He's gotten a ton of roles and stuff like that. He is one of those guys in like those late 90s and early 2000s and stuff was banging out, at least one movie a year almost.
Yeah.
And also a time when quirky movies could break out at the box office.
It's also it's also one of those movies too where it seems to have moved over to television, but this movie is one of the has so many moments where you want to crawl up your own ass because of from discomfort of the character.
Oh lordy, yeah.
And that seems to have transferred over to television now. Like you don't get movies like that anymore. And so just to see this movie and how many moments there are where you're just like, how much more of this am I going to have to endure? Is what it felt like.
I feel like the person who wrote the script reached a point in his life and he said, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to put the most miserable person I can think of on paper. So he chose this in order to prolong his life, which I support.
Yes.
But boy, I feel his dissatisfaction with existence through every page of his script.
Well, then his next screenplay is A Pursuit of Happiness. This guy kind of lives in this bad realm, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a pretty good idea which meds he's on, so we'll continue then.
I think that I'm remembering it like, oh, this is a well-written movie. Like, even if I don't agree, like, even if I'm not enjoying myself watching this movie, which that's not what this movie is for. This movie is not so you can enjoy your time. This is a movie for like quiet reflection.
I was about to say you're good. Yeah, this is a reflect on your own life through the lens of these characters kind of thing. And like, if I was within these particular things, how would I then apply it to my life? And I think in a lot of cases and stuff, when we see characters like the David Spritz character in this, you do kind of feel a little bit better about yourself because you're like, at least I'm not dumb enough to be doing stuff like that. I would remember, to bring the one thing home that what my wife yelled at me for. But at the same time, too, you can also see where something, that could go away.
Was the Spritz name an homage to Larry Sprinkle? Because a sprinkle and a spritz are kind of the same thing.
Yeah, listen, if I was Larry Sprinkle, I'd be rolling that theory around.
I would imagine the guy who wrote the screenplay probably looked around to see how plausible it is that the weatherman's last name is Spritz. And when he saw Larry Sprinkle, he was like, yep, totally plausible.
And I like how they kind of, gave him his own little twist and stuff and his own little kind of catchphrases and for whatever you might want to call that for his weather reports and stuff like that, just kind of niching him up to when people in town come and ask him like, hey, what's the Spritz or whatever the hell their little
nipper.
The nipper, that's what it was. It's like, what's the nipper out here? So that's some fun bull crap that a local weather station, even in Chicago, would still do. Yeah.
I remember we used to have our top 10 days. That's what our weatherman would do. And I swear there were 30 or 40 of them every year.
We're counting down the top 10 days and we're starting at number 30.
No, he would say, I declare today a top 10 day of the year, 72 and sunny. But there would be like so many top 10 days. There had to be more than 10. I don't think anybody called him out on his BS.
No one's
Guys
keeping
make
track
big
and being
people
like
feel
by
better.
like
I
March.
threw
They're
an
like,
order
nope.
of Rally's fries at him once. He got the point.
So here's where I took a lot of this movie and stuff from is my experience in news, and because I love news movies and how they're portrayed, and I love seeing the stuff that's right. I love seeing the stuff that's wrong, and
Give us a percentage of how much of this movie got the news part right.
It feels about 80 plus. It really,
Wow, really?
It's pretty good. I was kind of shocked at some of the things that like how accurate everything was. The green screen for weather and all that stuff was spot on. The TVs, like where he would be looking and stuff, were exact. I do like. They had like the lines on the floor where things were for appropriate. You know, you kind of stand right about here. What I always liked was ones that have it's probably about like 8 inches or so off the ground, but it's kind of like not really a 2x4, but something along that kind of measurement, right? That just goes across the floor to kind of give them like 2 feet standing out from the green screen, so they're not standing up against it, because that never keys well and stuff like that. So I always like one of those where they're just like, hey, we're gonna help you out a little bit. You can't go past this thing and screw stuff up. So but again, him looking back into the camera, the reverse, you know, showing him what he's looking at here and everything, his description of all that kind of stuff, it's all correct. The robotic camera, they were rocking the robotic cameras back in, 2005, very much so and stuff. And that was certainly something that they would be showing off at that point, because everybody was starting to get them and they were really, really proud of them at that point. So yeah, like one of the things that I would say that's kind of like the offset of all this that I wouldn't find correct is he kind of had like a manager, if you will, who was saying like, who is running down his like obligations and things like that. Maybe it's a little bigger market, Chicago, perhaps, or something like that. That didn't seem to bode well. I was just like, no, he would just be doing, he'd be running his own calendar, so to speak.
He definitely would not have a secretary in Huntington, but Chicago's a slightly larger market.
It might be, but again, if he was, I would consider that to be an option if he was the meteorologist. And that is also something I was very happy that they pointed out in this movie. I wrote my little rant here before rewatching the movie and everything, just because that's a little, again, not pet peeves, I don't know if it's the right word or whatever, but like, people being called weatherman versus meteorologists and stuff. You see very few weathermen these days. They're certainly kind of falling out of favor. Same thing with weather ladies, but you actually they'd like you to have a degree these days. Yeah. But most of the weathermen are kind of like they've kind of been grandfathered in, like your Larry Sprinkle and stuff like that. He is a weatherman and not a meteorologist. But they were just kind of based upon personality here and everything, which is interesting watching this as, Nick Cage and seeing what that television personality is. And it's just okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just okay as far as TV goes and everything. So it does kind of scratch your noggin a little bit, going like, why would the equivalent of the Today Show, which, by the way, you're doing everything but calling it the Today Show. What the hell's going on here? You have Gumbel. You have like the assets are damn near the same. You just changed the name. The graphics, they're all the same. It's all the same shit.
It's a Paramount production. Maybe that had something to do with they didn't want to endorse one station over the other.
Sure. Beats me. That seemed like
because I think at this point Gumbel was off network TV and at HBO.
Yeah, he's probably, or if it's not, it was
Greg
just
Gumbel
at
was
the
still
end
on TV, on broadcast TV, but Bryant had gone for greener pastures probably in the 90s, I thought.
He's like, I'm getting out of here before that Lauer situation goes down.
They're coming after me next. Got to go.
But so a couple other things. So his big contract going to New York is $900,000 a year plus, other things. So he's going to end up at, we'll call it $1.2 million, I think he said. Even in 2005 money, he getting hosed. Do you know what Al Roker makes today?
Oh, probably 30 million.
No, but he wishes $10 million a year. That's still way too much. It's
when I hear like how much people like Judge Judy make, I'm so glad I'm not like moderately successful in the entertainment business, because it would kill me to see the people who are just filthy rich.
Well, here's the difference between Roker and Judge Judy is that Judge Judy is an executive producer on her own show. Like she took the gamble on herself.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. Like if you're willing to roll the dice and take the
Okay,
game,
the
yourself,
fact that
yeah,
she owns her show, I think is fine. The number of stations that buy her show is where I have the problem.
well, sure.
Well, they gotta fill time and stuff like that. And if you can do it for
Yeah.
cheap enough and produce a product, and you can bang those products out in quick succession here and everything, and I guarantee you, she banks a shitload of episodes in a week and then is set to go, man.
All that she proved is that Wapner got hosed.
She shoots all of that show in like a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wapner had no business acumen. I could tell you that much.
But when it comes to Al Roker, that's when I get peeved, because anyone can do what Al Roker does.
That is correct.
Literally anyone can do it. And it's not like he's a looker. He's never been a looker.
Mm-mm.
He can't, and he can't even do what you do, Adam, which is talk forever and say nothing.
Mhm.
He can't do that either.
He claims he was illiterate till he was an adult too.
Yikes.
Whatever the case, like whenever it comes to those like everyday TV personalities, like if you like just fell ass backwards into a thing, I'm like, okay, well, like if you want to be taken seriously, actually do something.
But I do like how they're kind of sitting down, Cage's character sitting down with another guy. We're not told who this guy is. Like, he's not their chief meteorologist, because he's like, that would be like an older guy at this point and stuff like that. This guy's, Cage's age or younger. And he's just kind of
on the poster. Like he's on the poster for the, like, in the bus terminal and stuff. Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's who he is.
And he's kind of explaining to him all the, the stuff like that. And that's what that meteorologist would do. And it's like, to be honest, though, it's got to be a very frustrating position for him as well, that you're supposedly seen as this expert on stuff. And at the same time, you're kind of living a lie. You're a little bit of an actor. One of our weather guys here would he would do the weather in the morning and then run the open mic comedy thing at the comedy club, like on Wednesdays or whatever and stuff like that. But that's what a weatherman does. That's not what a media. Your Brad Panovich is not showing up because that's an educated man. Like, I worked with him as well. That dude, you walk it, like, you ask him that was always the best. You could just go up to that, like, as far as weather guys go, you could ask him. He just knew everything. It was just like, damn it, that's my weatherman right there. That boy is smart. Like,
now, our local guys are my age or younger, and they call themselves meteorologists, so I assume that they are.
You can't not. There's some serious
still the
ramifications.
two guys that I compete with to see who's going to get marching band gigs for public address. So they still do the public stuff.
Hey man, you can always be a grand marshal of a parade. That's for damn sure.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you, I got a couple of stories of some weather things and my time in news, and I thought that these would just kind of be fun because I don't have often chances to tell these stories. So when I worked in news, local CBS station in Charlotte, we had a meteorologist at the time. He was a meteorologist. You wouldn't think so looking at him because he was a pretty good looking dude. He was kind of like a surfer. His name was Chris Suchan. Great guy, very cool. But like, you would think like a frat dude knew weather. It was quite bizarre. But he was handsome as all get out. He was married, but like, he would have people call the station and stuff for him. Now, he would normally, because he was kind of like your third tier anchor there or weatherman there and everything, he'd mostly kind of work your weekends, your overnight weekends and stuff like that. So about 3:00 in the morning, every now and then, we'd have some calls and stuff come in. Usually, like, you never quite knew what the calls were going to be. Like, normally they were like weird tip lines. People just calling in, just telling you stuff that's like you just don't care about, like things that probably aren't even true. You just kind of go, that sounds real great. Click. There was another one where somebody called in. He said, I think he had to have been homeless, but he said there was a two-headed man walking around Wilkinson Boulevard.
Nice.
And he was, I forget exactly what he was doing. There was something else. It was like, a two-headed man, you say. All right, well, forget that. But we would have people call up sometimes for even weather. One guy called up, and again, there weren't many of us there. It was like 3:00 in the morning. So you just transfer a phone call. You're just like, send it down to the weather center, whatever. He picks it up, and like Chris would come out every now and then when we do that, and he'd be like, what the hell, guys? Thanks, what? He goes, why did you sit in that phone call? It's like, I don't know. They just said, can we talk to weather? And we just sent him to weather. He goes, he is on the phone with me asking, when is the vernal equinox? And I'm like, I don't fucking know.
June 21st.
He's like, why would these people? It's insane.
Oh, that's a solstice, not an equinox.
But
March
then
21st.
But Chris had like a lady who would continue to kind of call. She was in love with him. She sounded like an elderly black lady. She sounded sweet, but not there at all. And she would call him Chris Snoochies. Because she could not say Suchan correctly. She did not put it together.
Snoochie's there.
Chris Snoochie's there. But it's like, and every now and then we'd throw her back to him. He got so mad at one point where he was just like, I swear to God, you better, like, if she is just hang up on her. We're just like, we didn't know it was her that time. We swear. But it was just, the news is such a fascinating, weird little place. And oddly enough, I'm almost thinking about sticking my toes back in that thing. And this part of this movie made me kind of go, I don't know. There's part of that old bullshit that I like.
Man.
I don't want to be a meteorologist. Hell no. First, I would be a weatherman first and foremost because I ain't going back to school for nothing. But you also know I can bullshit in front of a green screen for a couple of minutes and talk about how a front's coming in or some nonsense.
Yeah, but I know there will be a point where you will disagree with management about something and you will take it out on the air.
What? A little old me? No. Come on. No, maybe.
Oh man, it'll be a YouTube sensation.
On camera, what are you thinking when you're going to be on camera? Like, what would you do?
No. I'm not thinking about going on camera. Okay. I'm thinking about being behind the camera, going back into news, essentially. Not as an on-air personality, unless Hollywood Calls coming. But no, probably.
I'd love to see you as the main anchor in Charlotte.
Hey, listen. I'm not. Okay. Oh, God, I hate myself so much.
Adam Porter's. You'd have to change your last name. Adam Porter.
Yeah, you would have to be Adam Porter.
No chance in hell.
The news at 6, 7, 9, and 11 with Adam Porter.
Really, you're offered a 6-figure salary. You're working very normal hours. You get your weekends off.
Oh, I'm not saying I wouldn't.
You're not
do
changing
this.
Your last name for that.
No, I probably would, but
you totally would.
But here's
I've changed mine for less.
That's true. It's a distinctive one though, and I kind of you build a brand off of that one. It's kind of a crummy brand at this point, but it is what it is.
Well, it's the same thing Jonathan Krasniewski said.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce, and if nationally, you probably could pull it off, but you're not pulling that off locally.
No, yeah, I got to put in my time as the porter. That's listen, listen, I'd like to make any kind of living right now. So yes, I will change. I will stoop and ruin the family name.
You should make a point and say, if I get to change my last name, I get to change my first one too. I'm Laszlo Porter.
Ooh. No one told me a first name change was an option as well. Well,
what made you pull out Laszlo?
It just seems like the thing I could pull out you would expect.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laszlo Porter, and this is the weather.
Got it. I'd watch that. Wouldn't you watch that, Sean?
I totally would. Are you kidding me?
20 degrees below.
If you're talking like Winchell, like Walter Winchell on TV now, man, that'd be great.
This storm front looks bad. It looks like the temperatures are going to drop dramatically, but not as dramatically as the prices at Charlotte Kia this weekend.
There's zero chance that if I was a weatherman, meteorologist, or whatever, especially around the Halloween stuff, I am getting the green out and putting that around me and being the bobbin head that's going around, the weather and stuff like that.
Just get one of those morph suits, man.
Exactly. We're getting a morph suit just popping out the head and stuff, and
nice.
A blast. That's absolutely what I would do in that scenario.
Nice.
But I want to get a job on the local news just for the Halloween season because they're all so cheesy and campy, and I love it.
It is. I just don't. I cannot see this national Good Morning America-esque show looking at this guy and going like, "That's our boy." And not only that,
for him,
giving him that because they make this long deal of he's not returning the phone calls. It's like, guess what? This is New York City, baby. You ain't shit to them. They if you're not returning that, they're moving on to the next person. He ain't that hot and cool that he's going to be that number one guy that's in there. I don't. Nuh-uh.
You think maybe they figure he has some national appeal because his father's a celebrity of sorts?
Well, I mean,
It is different having a famous dad. That does make it different.
Also, they played it up like in the interview, he acted like he didn't give a shit. And if I'm to believe the Facebook movie, that's how you get investors to be nuts for you. It's like you don't give a who.
Hey, listen, we let Frank Sinatra's kid host the news, so who are to say?
I'm not going to mention the person's name because or where I know them from, but they are a local celebrity, and they were in a spot where they were very well known locally, and they kept trying to make the jump to go national, and management team, the whole thing. And so when I ran into this person and I and started being on their show, they would say things like, you got to teach me how you got national. Like I've been trying to get national.
This is.
No, you really don't.
Okay, because I thought it was, the old mill down at the water.
No, it's not that.
It sounds like it though.
Yes, but I'm talking about somebody who's actually known. Like
how much you get paid? How much you get paid?
Oh, they're all of those questions all the time from that guy. Yes, but like this is somebody who's like actually honest to God, like locally, like famous. Like walks down the street, people will say like walk up to him and be like, "Hey, blah 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 blah," like that. So he's got all of the people in place. He can't crack nationally. He can't do it. And he and so after we were done, like I had done a spot on his show, and he pulls me aside, and all of the recording equipment is done and put away. And he's like, I think probably my biggest problem is that I'm gay, but I'm not publicly gay, and I think that might be a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that can't be helping you, but it's because you're so boring. He is such a boring person.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's the true story of Anderson Cooper.
He's so unbelievably boring. And right, exactly. Like Anderson Cooper is like the most out gay guy in the world. No one cares.
Yeah.
Of course, this was also like 20 years ago, so maybe it's a different story. But like I said to him, I was like, you either want different management or you need to figure out a different avenue to do it, because there's something, if you keep reaching the same block, then you need to find a different way to do it, because that's what happened to me, is that I kept wanting to do one thing, but it ended up being this other thing that got me there. And so you need to do the same. And he's like, oh, that's good advice. That's good advice. What could be my other thing? And I'm like, you're asking me, a damn near stranger? I didn't say that to him, but it's like, you need to figure this out, man, because also Father Time was coming up on him fast. So I was like, man, like
2 words, animal companion.
Maybe. I mean, just
if he got him a pet gopher named Jethro, ratings.
If he had something to recommend him, like, oh, that's the guy with the dog. That's cool. But he didn't have that. Like, he had nothing.
Like the little Mickey Rourke dog.
It never happened, man. Like, it never happened for him. And last I checked, he's still working in Charlotte. But it was like, wow, this is like.
Is there anything else to say about the weatherman?
I do. Yeah, I got a couple. So just one thing, like, just kind of get your guys' thought about this, and kind of I guess a lot of the crux of the movie and stuff is kind of the taking back of his sanity was something that he control, or at least at the very least aim, no pun intended there, just to kind of better oneself. I did like that portion because it was, I don't know, it makes sense in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people are like that. They kind of need some sort of, outside activity that they can kind of shut off all the other things and just kind of focus on this one thing and kind of continuously try to improve that, and then just be their driver for them.
Yeah, it's a type of mindfulness, man. Having a hobby that means something to you, that helps you escape, that's a good thing, especially if there's a physical component. That's the part I've always been lacking in. But archery, I can imagine that being really a nice way to clear your head. And when you got a whole lot beaten down on you, you need ways to escape that aren't chemical sometimes.
That's fun. That's a fun thought. Like,
And
golf takes way too long, but archery maybe.
And I like the idea that, like, and this is true. These things do kind of happen and stuff when he goes to take his daughter to the lesson and everything. And then later on, he gets a lesson, but he gets it from another person. The other person that's giving him the lesson is far better at giving a lesson than the other guy. And like that kind of stuff happens where it's like you could get instruction from somebody on how to do things and you go, well, I don't like this, but they may have just been teaching you a way that doesn't really work for you. And so I thought that was very interesting as well.
I've got a positive on this movie too, which is that I think that the girl, the actress who's playing his daughter in this movie is pretty great.
Yeah,
she's pretty great. Like you completely believe
yes.
you completely believe her in this movie.
She's naturalistic. She feels like she looks and feels like a little kid of that age and stuff. And the little montage and whatnot where they're trying on clothes, they look like they're really having an honest to God good time. And I would put good odds on Nick Cage is actually probably pretty good with kids if I'm to venture a guess.
He has the mind of one, so it makes
That's
sense.
what I'm saying. Like he's got kind of a childlike wonder and everything to him, and he's got a successful kid and everything right now.
But I love pyramids.
He seems happy. The pictures I see of him with his son.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids he has, but the son who's Asian.
The one is that'll claim at least.
Yeah. The pictures where he's walking. Did he name his son Jor-El?
There's one kid named Jor-El, yes.
Yeah, that might be the one that I've seen pictures of him with.
Years ago, I heard like him and his son did like a joint interview on Adam Carolla, and it was really good. It was a good conversation with all three. You wouldn't think, but sure enough, it was quite good.
I did like the value though of having like that escape. I think archery is a great activity to pick to illustrate that in a movie that people instantly catch on to without even necessarily realizing that they're catching on.
Yeah.
I very much believe in the value of escapism. I really, really do. My childhood was not a happy one, so I learned lots of ways to escape. And archery ended up with a window through the neighbor or an arrow through the neighbor's window, and me getting in trouble for something my dumb cousin did. But there were other things I did to escape too.
Sure. You think he was playing with Rom Space Knight because he just loved Rom Space Knight?
Yeah, exactly, man. I ROM'd the heck out of my ROM. I ROM'd everything in town. It had those red eyes that would light up for like 3 hours and the batteries would die, and my parents would never buy me more batteries, but I'd pretend they would still light up.
And batteries are expensive. What are you talking about, especially then?
Can't afford batteries because there's hardly any cigarettes in the house.
The thing that I do have to say, because like, although I hate this movie, and I really do hate this movie, to get back to the daughter for a second, like at least the movie has the balls to like, oh, my daughter is having a tough time in school, and she's not the hottest person in school like they usually want to do in movies, where like, oh, my daughter's a nerd, so she gets picked on constantly, and then the camera cuts to a picture of like a future Victoria's Secrets model with glasses on, especially during this era, like the early 2000s does this a lot. And so to have it be somebody who looks like just some normal girl, like in this role, having a tough time at school because she's a little bit overweight and she's a little bit, like keeps things inside, like that kid looks like somebody who could be picked on.
And she's written so well because like when he asks her, about the insults and stuff, she just means like, oh, because like camels are like resourceful and smart and tough and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh, this poor sweet child doesn't even like, see how she's being denigrated right in front of her face. And it was like, it's just kind of a very real moment that, a sweet little kid would probably have. Just like, I don't know any better as far as I'm aware.
You don't want to ruin it. Like you want to tell them it's an insult, but you also don't want to ruin the way they're dealing with it way better than you are.
Yeah.
Right.
But they introduced her perfectly at the ballet class.
Oh, yeah.
Like with her standing in the window waving next to all the girls who are normally cast as daughters in these kind of movies. It's just a perfect introduction. It tells you everything we're getting into, that someone is trying to force this girl into a mold that she just is not going to fit.
Right.
And the son with his drug counselor. That's one that I think connects with parents a whole lot. And Fortunately, thank God, fortunately, I've never had to deal with anything like that as a parent, but I do have 50 years of bottled up rage. And I think that's what would probably break the tap, and it would just spew all over some poor
Yep,
people.
I'm like, that L train couldn't be loud enough. And I don't know that he'd get out with just, kind of a slightly bloody nose and stuff like that. It's like, no. It's like, we might not find you again.
I love what he says too. Like, that stuck with me. I remembered this from the first time, and he said, he's just a kid. I know he looks older, but you got to remember he's just a kid, because you do have to say that to some adults, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
So let's ask the big question here, boys. Nick Cage, is he doing it in this movie?
I think Nick Cage, if you don't mind for me going first,
please,
I'm going to say
please.
I think Nick Cage gives the perfect performance for this movie, but this isn't necessarily a movie that was ever made for me. But I think Nick Cage is getting it done. Could you replace him? Yeah, there's a bunch of indie actors.
Ben
you could
Stiller.
probably put. Ben Stiller might have done better. Yeah, I like that choice.
I think Cage is doing it in this. Like, again, I think, Bruce, those two, you're correct. Those things don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive of a good performance and a good movie. But yeah, I think like it's an understated performance for him for the most part, and that's always good, especially considering how many times, especially nowadays, where it is just like, let's turn the Cage to 11. He's a normal guy in this. He has his outbursts and his moments and stuff, but character-driven wise, they're normal and they make sense. It doesn't feel like it feels like Gore had him a little bit under control and didn't let him get to Nick Cagey about everything, which oftentimes results in quite a good performance.
Gore Verbinski runs a tight set, so like it's pretty he's basically the perfect director for him. When you have these oddball actors who sometimes are like, oh well, then I'm going to take over, and Gore Verbinski's like, let's talk about this. Like he's not like cutting the actor off, but he's like, we need to discuss your character. Like he's really good about that.
So you guys answered it as far as you would if you had to recast this. I think now it makes the movie an entirely different thing, but I think he's a good enough actor to do it, but you'll have to kind of take him out of this particular picture and stuff. But I think old Gil Billows, who plays the drug counselor, could probably play this role.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I think he'd be really good. I like him in a whole bunch of stuff that he's in and stuff. He's been one of those kind of character actors that's just kind of been around for a good while. He's good looking, but not like so good looking that he overpowers stuff and everything, but always has a pretty good presence and whatnot. I think he could play this role, and this feels like a role that he could have been up for, and then it's just like, brother, I'm sorry, it's friggin' Nick Cage right now. It's Nick Cage in 2005. You got to take the drug counselor role here.
Yeah.
So I could see that. All right, movies only come in two forms. They're either art or fart. Bruce, where does The Weatherman fall on the art or fart for you, sir?
Well, it just depends on if you'd like to pay full price for a ticket to go spend a movie that makes you feel exactly the same way you feel when you're not at a movie. I mean, if that's what you're looking for in your movie going experience, knock yourself out. But for me, this one's a fart because, man, I got to get far away from feeling the way this movie makes me feel when I go to the movies.
Fair enough. Sean?
It's a fart for me, but it's a fart for me for a different reason. Like, I don't agree with you have to choose between a family or work. I think that's ridiculous. Like you can do both. You just have to manage,
especially when you're a
properly.
meteorologist, or especially when you're a weatherman who's just reciting some crap that was written down on a piece of paper from him and put up on a prompter.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, right? And the other
even
part
says himself he only has to work 2 hours a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other part to this too, well, that's not true. I mean, the worst part about being a local celebrity is all of those stand-up things that you have to do. You know, like he's opening a mall.
Yeah, and they do be sending the meteorologist or the weatherman and not the meteorologist out for those events. Though.
They definitely do. That's the bad part of the job. Like that, and that happens a lot.
Unless you get off on that person, on having that personality and everything, and being that kind of magnate.
Sure.
Which some of them do.
So like that part I get. What was I talking about?
Why you don't like it?
Why I don't like it? But and like there's things about this movie that in the script, at the script part of this, just don't make a ton of sense to me, right? Like this character is like he's too dumb to realize the reason why everybody hates him is because he doesn't spend any time with anybody and he just listen to what they say. Like that's pretty easy to figure out, especially when everyone keeps yelling at you. You're not listening to what I'm saying. Like how many times is that said in this movie? 4? Like, come on, let's get it together. Like it makes me insane. This is a movie that makes you that wants to make you feel bad. And I also don't like that sort of movie also. So for that reason alone, it's a fart for me.
Yeah, I'm going just barely fart here, but there's enough to like. I feel like you could watch this once and be done with it if you just kind of want to see a good Nicolas Cage performance. But it's I don't know, spend it on a happy day or something when you're okay, or maybe you're already down and you're just like, you know what, screw it, we're into the breach we go. But I mean, I guess if you can do your best at looking at it through the lens of somebody who's having a difficult time trying to get things together and kind of finds a one in zenness with, shooting a bow and arrow that in at least some small sliver helped him get his life semi together comparatively to before, because it's not, no one would sit there and go like, oh, he's got it all figured out by the end while he's on the float waving at everybody. Because like, I still feel like this guy's a nervous bundle of stuff who's just gonna, pop at any moment, that it's just gonna take something, especially in New York City, watch out. But it's just okay. It's okay for what it is. I applaud it for its correctness in the ways of news and showing things for the most part how they at least seem to be from my recollection, and I was in there around that time and everything, so that makes sense. So that's just a fart for me. Just a little dry fart. That is it, everybody. St. Nicholas Christmas Cage keeps on rolling on here. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a second. Sean, where else can people find stuff of us on the internet?
Go to YouTube.
It's huge over there at the YouTube, everybody. We got our podcast out there, which oddly comes in 2 different forms. We got it on the regular page, and there's a little podcast tab. I kind of keep both up. I don't know why. We'll see if that forms into anything. And I've got some other great videos and stuff out there, and I'm making more and stuff this week. It's the only thing I'm doing right now. So please, for the love of God, go over to youtube.com and check out HMP over there. I really appreciate it. Love, love, love you all. Thank you so much. Next week, everybody, we're going to be talking about Family Man. I figure it this way, because our other movie is going to be a little bit more comedic and stuff. I want to put that one towards Christmas. So let's get our kind of more emotional stuff out of the way, and then we're going to have a little bit more fun just before Christmas. So I want to put us on the right track here, if that's
Very
okay with
good.
you boys. So yeah, we're going to be discussing Family Man, and listen, we got 2 family men on this program. I imagine you guys know something about that.
Sure.
So we'll talk about all that here next week. That'll do it for this episode of your Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Join us next week. I've done it twice this week. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. As we continue St. Nicholas Cage, the Christmas movies of Nicolas Cage with Family Man from the year 2000. For the sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portras, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.